This is a story about one of the greatest British franchises of all time. Well respected in the majority of the world. I am talking about Doctor Who. So as Doctor Who approaches its 60th anniversary, we have some special bits and pieces coming out for it. And there's also a lot of discourse. A lot of the episodes have been released onto BBC iPlayer, which means that anyone in the UK can watch almost every episode, apart from a few, owing to legal disputes. That's a story for another time. However, there is something that a lot of people have missed in the wild history of Doctor Who. People talk about the controversy regarding the Timeless Child. People talk about whether or not the Peter Cushing movies are technically canon or not. People will shout at the fact that Paul McGann was very underrated as a Doctor, appearing as he did in one pretty bad movie and a short episode that very few people have seen.
I'm a doctor, but probably not the one you're expecting.
However, I want to touch on something that a lot of people appear to forget. Music. Now, I'm not talking about the classic theme tune in its multiple iterations. I'm not talking about Murray Gold's fantastic albums, music from the series of Doctor Who. I'm not even talking about the fact that Radio 3 did Doctor Who at the proms, and the fact that the music was amazing, aside from one bit where there was a singer blatantly out of tune and they just forgot to edit that bit out. Kind of obvious when you know what you're looking for. No, I am going to be discussing some of the songs that people have kind of ignored, forgotten. So let's start at the beginning, shall we? Way back in the 1960s, this small blue box appeared on people's televisions. I mean, technically it was a slightly dark grey box appearing against a slightly less dark grey background, but that's not the point. As far as we knew, it was a classic blue British police box. And everybody loved the idea. Everyone loved the concept. There weren't many left in the UK. In fact, even now the majority of people will go to Earl's Court to stand beside a blue police box. But Google Maps is a lot more fun. Find it, click it, and you're in the Tardis. However, if you're in the southeast, you ever go to Chatham Historic Dockyard, they have one as well. It's also a lot less busy, and the photos look just as cool, if not slightly better. Where was I? Oh yes, so this classic TV show started, and one of the things that came to the forefront very quickly was the fact that people quite liked the Daleks. But what were the Daleks? They've changed over time, but originally they were a group of scientists whose brains got too big for their bodies. The bodies atrophied under them, so they had to build these mechanical shells to house their brains to make sure that they stayed alive. Interesting concept. They, metaphorically and physically, mutated over time to become the Daleks we knew today. However, people quite liked the idea of the Daleks, as they were nicknamed the Pepper Pots. And yes, you could actually buy Dalek salt and pepper shakers. However, I'm not going to show you any because, frankly, I do not have the money to get them off of eBay, because it's ridiculous. Where was I? So, these Daleks became so popular that people jumped on the bandwagon, including this classic song. Oh yes, released in the late 60s, a wonderful ditty. I'm gonna spend my Christmas with a Dalek. It was good. It did okay in the charts. It had a small following and disappeared quite quickly in the new year. But that's okay. It was a little hit song and nobody remembered. So, we'll fast forward through time. When I say fast forward through time, we've got a TARDIS, so we can go anywhere. So let's nip over, if you will, to Australia during the late 70s. And a glorious little song. However, as this was Australia and the 1970s, it didn't get much traction outside of Australia, which is a shame because it's actually quite good, and it's a classic. That's right, Doctor Who Is Gonna Fix It is a definite contender for an awesome song. It's just a shame it never gained any traction because it is really worth listening to. I suggest you look it up on YouTube if you can find it. But now, onto one of the most forgotten and derided pieces of music. As we head into the final throes of the original Doctor Who series, Colin Baker, Doctor Number 6, had left, being one of the most disliked doctors in the entirety of Doctor Who. After just a single season, he was gone, leaving the door open for Doctor Number 7, Sylvester McCoy, to step in. However, the landscape was changing. The people at the top of the BBC had started to change. Old blood was out, new blood was in, and this new blood didn't particularly like sci-fi or Doctor Who. And so that meant it was placed on the chopping block. But as a dearly loved show, it couldn't just be taken out. No. Instead, it was put on hiatus for 18 months. The first series of Sylvester McCoy's run, he was a bit more goofy, a bit more fun. The second series, he was darker, grittier, as the budgets were cut and the scripts got a little bit worse. But then they finished with the last fantastic line.
There are worlds out there where the sky's burning, where the sea's asleep and the rivers dream. People made of smoke and cities made of song. Some of there's danger, some of there's injustice, and somewhere else the tea's getting cold. Come on, Ace, we've got work to do.
And then silence. But then, from out of the ashes, from nowhere in particular, a song appeared. Doctor in Distress. Oh yes, the song that did so well that a couple of months later everyone forgot it existed. Like the Tardis had swallowed it up and just removed it from time itself. A fantastic, a silly little song that did so well at convincing the BBC not to cancel Doctor Who that it would be a good 20-something years before it ever came back onto the television. I mean, it's not like they didn't try. They tried a couple of times. They had the Paul McGann Doctor Who movie, which was intended to launch Doctor Who in the US and did so well that they didn't actually follow it up with anything. And of course, Doctor Who appeared in several different charity shows. Children in Need in this weird Dimensions in Time 3D glasses special, which either made you feel sick or you couldn't see the 3D effect, with a pretty terrible plot. But it brought back a load of old Doctors, which was nice. They also had one for Red Nose Day, where they attempted to go through all the rest of the Doctor's incarnations. Everyone involved, from Rowan Atkinson to Jim Broadbent and Richard E. Grant, which is quite ironic as he went up to be the Great Intelligence up against Matt Smith. And of course finishing on Joanna Lumley. So yes, Jody Whitaker was not the first female Doctor. But Doctor Who is still involved in its own controversy. The new theme tune has been derided as not being particularly great. The alteration to Davros has also been quite widely panned. And we've just got to hope that the new Doctor creates a legacy that's worth remembering. Doctor Who's failures can't be put onto anyone in particular. Peter Capaldi was well received in his first season as the Doctor, eventually. But then as time went on, you could tell the budget started to slip again and the writing started to suffer. And then as the entire team swapped over for Jodie Whittaker's run, unfortunately the stories weren't great and the direction it ended up in wasn't really liked by the fans. Jodie Whittaker herself is actually quite a good actress. It's just unfortunately she didn't have the team around her to make it worthwhile. She started off being a kind of tinkerer, and if they'd stuck with that, she could have done surprisingly amazing, and yet they didn't. But on we go to the future, and hopefully we won't have a repeat of what happened to Doctor Number 7. Because I think the last thing any of us want is another Doctor Who charity song that, like the series, will just end up forgotten. I'm the Internet Help Desk. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you all on the internet.